What's up? Yuda again for BeatLab. Another episode of Should I Buy It? Today we're talking about the VPS Avenger. It's not even a synth, they call it a production suite. I gotta be honest, I already bought it. It's just too good. It's insane. It's one of the most craziest, most elaborate synths I ever used. I don't even know if we have enough time to go over everything. It's just gonna take too long. So we're just gonna do an overview of this insane, crazy synth. Let's check it out. Okay, so I have it loaded up in Ableton. I have a default patch. And let's start going over it. There's just too much stuff. So just an overview of the capabilities, and then we go over one by one. We have up to 8 oscillator modules. Each module is a world on its own. A lot of different ways of shaping the waveforms, the oscillators, with FM and wave shaping and all those type of things. 8 arpeggiator modules, 8 step sequencers, 8 modulation envelopes besides the the regular amp envelopes. We got 8 pitch envelopes, 4 amp envelopes, 4 filter modules and a master filter, 4 shapers, 4 LFOs, a drum sequencer. There's even like a drum machine built in. We can do a lot of with the routings. And there's so many different synthesis types, from classic virtual analog to wavetable to FM to multi-samples to resampling, drum kits, granular synthesis, feedback. It's wow, it's just endless. So right here, let's just start. Default patch, we didn't do anything. We do get a lot, I think over 900 factory presets. All of them are categorized, which is great. And you can download a lot of expansion packs that comes with all sorts of presets and wavetables and stuff like that, waveforms. So here you'll see all the different packs that you have, info about them if you want to categorize in a different way, and that's the actual files on your computer. Now, the library do grab a lot. I think it's like 2 gigs just for the defactory, and if you get a lot of expansion packs, might be worth putting on external hard drive, because it might be too much. So right here I have the default preset. Here if I go memory, initialize, it actually asks me if I want to initialize, which is very good. Some synths don't, which is bad, but that's great. So default patch, just a regular saw wave. Let's go up an octave. Okay, so first of all, we can already hear we have some effects on it. And here we see the signal chain of the oscillator. So first of all, I'm going to turn off the effects. We don't want those effects. So right now we just have the pitch envelope going into the filter envelope, or going into the filter, which has an envelope attached to it. That's great. Okay, so right here to the left, we have the voicing section, kind of like the unison. So here we can bring up, let's mix it in. We can detune it. We can pan all the different voices separately, so for more stereo or mono. Here we can decide how they're being spread across the octaves. And here how many voices. You even have some special stuff like pan compensation for voices 2, 4, and 6. So that's the voicing section. Right here we have a built-in vibrato, just an LFO for the pitch. Let's bring it up. Here is the actual waveforms. You can even do custom waveforms. We'll talk about it later. The rate. And the fade-in if you want to fade in. Nice, and here's the curve of how it goes in, the fade-in. So that's the vibrato section. We can also go to the voicing stack. And here we have just we can stack voices on top of each other. If you ever used the chord MIDI effect in Ableton, it's very similar, and we get a lot of presets for chords. Each voice can have its own detuning, panning, and volume. Let's turn them off. So that's the voicing sections, which come with a lot of presets. Very cool if you want to make one-note chords or just a fat-sounding note. Here we have the sub-oscillator. Just a few basic waveforms, which octave it is, above, below, or the same octave, volume, and you can even invert it if you want to phase it versions. Nice, and here we have the amount of voices that is being played, and even some special MIDI stuff that mostly got to do with the bass. How does that kind of behave as we play MIDI? Really awesome stuff, and I just want to remind everyone, this is just one oscillator. We have this times 8. So right here on the top, I can add more oscillators if I want, up to 8, and all of them, let's delete that, all of them are identical, so you can, like, each one has its own sub-oscillator and everything we're going to talk about. Here is the actual oscillator, the level, transposing. Here we have fine-tuning. Here we have the noise. If you want a built-in noise, and here we can also decide what type of noise, fully stereo, mono, and so on. You can even lock the phase. So much stuff here you won't see on other synthesizers. Built-in FM. I love how everything is visualized on the waveform display. You can also decide what type of FM it is. There's a lot of different types. Even oversampled FM with with very smooth type of frequency modulation, and the type of waveform that is used for this FM. You can even do custom ones. The rate of the FM, right here. And also that have a few modes, like even an octave just goes between 3 modes. So like things that got to do with intervals, like majors, makes it much more musical. So that's the FM built in. We also have AM, amplitude modulation. So the volume amplitude is moving extremely fast. And also here we have all the custom all the shapes and custom ones that we can check out later. Here we have a few different wave shapers, like exciting, so just bending the waveform. We have format, which is kind of like pulse width. All sorts of different ways, so much stuff. And beats, kind of like beat crushing. Also here you can change it to different ways of beat crushing, the different amplitudes and phasing. Here we have just a sync to kind of get the classic sync effect. And also here we have a bunch of different ways to sync it. Just wow. And here is just an envelope for the sync. Incredible stuff. Right here we can change the key tracking. If we want to remove that, we can do 0 for drums and hits and beats and stuff like that. So now it doesn't track the keys playing the same note. Let's go back to 100. Gain of the waveform and the fade. And it's kind of like if you have like just too much clicks in the beginning, you can add some it's a M fade, micro fade, and invert the phase as well. Nice. Here's the phase. You can take it all the way out down to 0 to do random phase. This is good for more like a super saw, like we see here, because if we have it in a certain phase, starting from a certain point, it does give us that laserish beginning to the sound. Pew, pew, instead of the random. It's much smoother. Okay, nice. Now, right here, if I click on the saw, it's actually going to bring us to the browser to go between all the different waveforms. Now, this also gives you access to all the different synthesis types that this synth can do. So VA shapes, virtual analog shapes, these are all the classic ones, plus some more custom ones. We can see there's a lot of them here. So many. Freeform shapes, those are shapes that you can kind of design your own. So if I close this, here we have the editor, and I can actually just draw in whatever I want. Wow. Even go to the FFT to change some harmonic content as well. Oh. And we have some presets as well for the freeform. Just crazy stuff. Here you can smooth both sides. Where do you split it for the wave shaping and normalize it? Amazing, amazing, so elaborate, so great. That's the freeform wave shape. We have wavetables. Wavetables, if you download expansion packs, you'll probably get more wavetables with that pack. And let's go to one of them. We can see on the bottom it changed to show us the wavetable. Here by default, we do have a wavetable envelope, which just goes down. We can see also it goes down in the wavetable itself. So we can cancel that. Let's put it on 1. And then with the index, we can actually change and go through the wavetable. So you can actually, let's load the preset here. I love that I have presets for all of this stuff. Right? Wow, so many different ways of sequencing how the wavetable move between one another. And we can, of course, change all the wavetables here. Wow, so you can see here on the bottom, we have this mode where we can actually say how many, what's the duplicate of the timing for each step. So envelope and sequencer, just envelope, envelope sequencer, and modulation. Wow, wow. It's just insane amount of stuff. We barely even start talking. It's already crazy things. You can turn it into vocoder mode, reverse it, the waveform, and normalize it if you need more volume. You can even, of course, create your own. So that is the wavetables. We also have resampling that is based on sampling. So now it's similar to the wavetable, just more on based on samples. We actually have like, it can be also an actual sampler. So right here is just sampler, and we have a bunch of stuff that we have, we can find on most samplers, like the starting point, the end, low pass filter, high pass filter, delay, and even shift it in just the root note. So it's kind of like time stretching. Okay, so that is the sample. Special samples, these are just like more for drumming and sound design, like the attacks, just the beginning of sounds, organic noises. So we can layer them, and also here it's a sampler. So those are special samples. Granular, let's go granular. So this is an actual loop that we can do a bunch of interesting things to it with this envelope again, decides how the playback is actually playing. Let's load a preset. Wow. So now it's just kind of like changing the playback speed and the position to achieve all this crazy granular synthesis effect. What the hell? Just amazing stuff. Amazing, amazing stuff. Unbelievable, this synth. Unbelievable. So that's the granular. I'm not going to go too deep into everything because we got so much to cover. And we also have in multi-loops, which are just samples, like a lot of samples, mostly for guitar chords. And we can even play. I can even play a chord and it detects it and launch the right sample. So that's here we can see all the different samples that we have here. And we can click on them to load a different sample. And we can even change the gain. Wow. Just wow. So that's the multi-sample. Let's go back to a regular saw so we can focus. So many different synth engines here. So many stuff it can do. Let's reset this. Okay, let's bring down the unison. Okay, nice. Here's the routing. We can route into different places. We can add an arpeggiator. We have 8 arpeggiators, so it's not only one. Pitch envelope, filter, amp, step sequencer, which is right here. The send effects. Here are the send rack. So we have all the send effects. I can add more if I want. We can go over the effects later. And the output effects right here. And the master filter, and of course to the output. Here we can add more things if we add them into the signal flow, into the signal chain. All of this is time 8. Right here we have the volume envelope, And the volume envelope, besides being like just a regular envelope, and it's nice how it's kind of take over the filter section just to visualize the envelope. I like that. We also have a few interesting things like spike. This is a built-in transient designer where it just boost the attack of the sound. We can now hear that kind of plucky on the beginning, without and with. And we can even add key tracking, velocity to depend on how hard we hit the note. Pan tracking, so it's gonna kind of mimic how a piano would sound like. The left notes will be more on the left, the right notes will be more on the right, and so on. And even spread, it's just gonna spread each new note to the left and right. So that's the amp envelope. We can have up to 4. Okay, what the hell? Here's the filter. A bunch of filter types, just the regular ones we could expect. A lot of different, like vintage, analog, from Nexus, is it? I forget. Power, and a bunch of like modeled after different synths. And we even have some special ones like comp filtering, talking, like more vowels, one that is built in with a beat crusher, and even one that is just took out of one of their plugins effects, the VPS Talkbox. So a lot of cool stuff. Let's try the Talkbox. Let's bring out the vowel. Key tracking, envelope right here on the bottom. One thing is that we don't have the filter visualized, but that's cool. We just cannot use our ears. But it would be nice if you move the cutoff, kind of the volume amp envelope display will change to show the cutoff just like it would when we change in the envelope itself. So that would be nice, but that's just a small thing compared to this massive synth. Up to 4 filters, and you have a master filter. So that's on top of everything. You also have another filter here, which is crazy. So that's the filter. Everything can be velocity, so very expressive. You can make your patches extremely expressive. Now, the filter goes into a shaper, not by default. So let's actually add the shaper. Where's the shaper? Right here. Let's put it after the filter. Let's just drag it. Nice. So now the filter goes into a shaper, and the shaper, again, it's visualized, which I love, adds a lot of different ways to shape the waveforms, mostly for distorting, for clipping. You have 2 different type of filters here. And of course, everything can be modulated. Endless ways of styling your sound, up to 4 shapers. Here we have the modulation matrix. Right now, we only have the filter cutoff being affected by the mod wheel. And we can see that on the filter. But we can route anything from here if we want with the plus button. There's a lot of different sources of modulation and a lot of different destinations. Or we can just right-click on something. No. Or we can just drag, let's say I want this LFO to just affecting the shaper amount. And then we have this arrow to bring it up. And if we go back to the mod matrix, we can see now it's appear here. The mod matrix, we can even bring it up because some patches have a very long list of modulation because you can do crazy stuff here. Now in the LFO, we can have up to 4 LFOs. And in the LFO, we have the shape here that we can change to whatever we want. And we can even use custom LFO shapes that we create our own for all sorts of things like the FM. Right now we can create a custom LFO right here. Or for modulation, of course. And we saw even for the amplitude modulation, a bunch of other places we can use these custom shapes if we want. Okay, and they're all shared between the LFOs. You just have the main shape you can use. So all the regular things we should expect from LFO, offset the actual waveform for a bipolar, for a unipolar instead of a bipolar, delay it and fade it in, and even those have some different options like syncing the delays and syncing the fading in. Here's the global rate, triplets, dotted notes. Wow, amazing stuff. Down here we have macros, 3 macros, which seems kind of small for this massive synth. Like we had in Rapid, if anyone saw that video, also just 3 macros. But we also have some macro buttons, if you need to turn on and off a few things together, that can be very useful. Again, we just drag it and decide where we want it to go. One thing that I like here, that if we right-click on something, it actually shows us where it is and jumps to it. So that's very cool. Love that. Okay, so let's go to the middle panel here. So this will turn into a browser if you click on it. Let's exit that. Even the browser, you can switch between the browser location and you can make it bigger if you want. Here we have the editor. The editor is depending on what type of engine you're using, depends on what kind of sample you're loading in. So let's load, for example, a sample. It's going to change to a sampler. Wavetable is going to change to the wavetable. And a regular virtual analog will just change to this editor of the harmonics. Okay, we have a built-in arpeggiator that is extremely, extremely powerful and comes with a lot of presets, which is great because we can see how they were made and what exactly is happening. Now, it's not on by default. We do need to turn it on in the route, so let's do that. Let's go down. Let's go low pass. And so much. We even have chords patterns here. Let's go chords. Wow, let's add an LFO on the filter here. So much stuff. So you have 4 different pages you can do the arpeggiator, and we have 8 different arpeggiators. What? And they can be independent. It's crazy. And also here you can just route it to wherever you want to start affecting, okay, besides the actual pitch. So that's the arpeggiator. Crazy. Drum sequencer, we'll talk about this later, we'll come back to this. Step sequencer, so you have already one built in here, I can turn it on. Let me turn off the arpeggiator. And we have just a step sequencer, so right now it controls the volume. Let's do like rhythmic complex, we'll see what we got here. Right, a bunch of very complex stuff, but we can also use this step sequencer for other things. Let's try it for the shaper. And now we can see it visualized. And you have up to 8 step sequencers. So this is another modulation source that you can modulate in all sorts of ways. Decay it, gate it, even shuffle it. Where's the shuffle? Here's the shuffle. Love how it's visualized in the shuffle. Step sequencer. Pitch envelope. Again, comes with presets, which I love. Let's turn off the step sequencer. Let's turn off the ARP. What are we? Let's go to the mod matrix, turn off some stuff here. Bring up the filter. Right, and now it gives it that small, kind of old school 8-bit. That's very cool. There's so much cool stuff here to learn from and use. Up to 8 pitch envelopes. You can decide the range, the pitch bend lag. Wow, portamento, right? All those different types. So pitch 1. Right now we have pitch 1, but we can change that if we have more enabled. You can see here also the shaper, also the filter. We can change which one it's going to. We can even add more if we want like dual filter action or quadruple filter action if we want to go crazy. Let me initialize the patch so we can keep it clean. Turn off the effects for now. Mod envelopes, just another envelope with a lot of presets and up to 8 Crazy. Here is the mixer section. If we add more oscillators, here we can mix the volume, the panic, mute, solo, all of that. We have all the oscillators together, the drums, and the master track. Here is all the drums volumes, which we'll talk about, and just the amplifiers, the volume envelopes amplifiers, if you want to change if they're assigned to different oscillators and layers. So here we have the zones, if you want to split up different oscillators, different layers to different key zones. So here's one sound, here's another sound, one sound on everything, the velocity ranges and how they behave, and the drums. And even the mod matrix key track. It's just some crazy stuff. And here's the global just system stuff you can do with tuning, where all your content is, if you need to put it on an external hard drive. There's a bunch of skins here you can change, and just some legal info. So it's endless. It's just endless. On the bottom here, we have all the expression controls, velocity, aftertouch, breath control, expression pedal, sustain pedal, and random. All of them you can just drag and assign to anything you want. Here's the mod wheel. Here's the pitch bend. Also, them can be assigned to anything you want. You can lock the shuffle, lock the master filter, and lock the master volume as you change presets. Which is cool, just to keep everything kind of the same, but with a different sound and modulation system. Here we have the drums, and the drums is just like a drum machine built in with a bunch of effects. We have their own routing. Here we can choose between a lot of different house drums and styles, house samples and styles. So let's load deep house, for example. I'm gonna mute all the oscillators so we can listen to just the drums. Let's hit one button. And it doesn't do anything while we're not playing. Is it in the mixer? Oh, here we go. I need to be lower. Let's go to the drums. So now if we go to the drum sequencer, you can see the sequence. We can unlock the drums, and we can load a lot of different sequences here and keep in the same drums. And we can go to each sample and edit that. Just crazy stuff. We can, of course, change the drums and keep the sequence. There's a lot of different drum kits. So that's why they call it a production suite, because it's not only a synthesizer, it's a whole thing. You can do full projects here. If we go to, let's go to the presets. Let's try multi-loops. Let's see what they got here. Oh, that's for all the drums. Do we have sequences? Let's try sequences. Right, it's a whole thing. Let's try one more. Look how many modulations. Wow. We can also see that the filters are visualized to which layers, which oscillators they're routed to. So we can see the green, which is A, and the blue, which is here, D. And we also see these ones are routed. So really great stuff. And if we change it here, let's say filter 1, we'll change this to filter 2, we can see now it's been changed. So that's a great way of visualizing all this complexity of routing, which is very cool. Wow, just wow. Okay, so the effects. Also, so many effects. Let's initialize this a second. Yes, thank you. I want to initialize. So let's turn off send effects. Let's just go to our effects 1, and here we can start adding all of them. So first of all, on the send effects, we can actually, there's a bunch of effects we can't use with send effects. So let's go to the regular insert effects. And here we have a whole section of filtering and reverbing. Sorry, reverb and delays. Modulation like flanger, phaser, chorus, and multi-mod even. Everything comes with their own presets. Distortion, a lot of different distortion here. Even a vinylizer to make it sound a bit older. Wow. Fuzzbox, Wave Shaper. We have a lot of dynamic compressor, limiters, even a built-in EQ if you want here. Right, and the gain. Transgate, another one if we need it. Oh, that's actually a transgate. So that's another section, another way of applying those step sequencers we talked about. And down here we have some stereo, like a stereo expander and a frequency shifter, and even just a stereo matrix if you want to start switching around left and right, delay, Haas effects, all of those. So this is up to 4 different effect section. We have a send effects, and we even have a master effect section, and each one of them can be routed to wherever you want. I don't really know what to say about this synth. It's like one of the craziest synths I ever encountered. This is just insane stuff. We barely even went over the small things. We didn't even talk about the small stuff that are so amazing. Like all these things you can do. Like it's just, I'm speechless. This synth is one of the best synths I ever used. Of course, it's more aimed, just from the essence of Vengeance as a company, it's more aimed at EDM producers, because that's what they're known for back in the early 2000s. Vengeance were just kind of like a standard in the sample packs area, and when they got to plugins, they made a lot of plugins. And now this, I know it was developed by like a third party for Vengeance, forgot his name, I apologize, I'll add it in the detailed a blog post that we're going to do a review on, and we're going to give our grade, our how much out of 10 does it get. I cannot say enough good things about this stuff. There's not really a lot of bad stuff I want to say about this, except maybe the library might be too big for some people, the factory library, and the filter is not visualized. But other than that, this thing is a beast. It's crazy. It's definitely worth it. Sometimes during holidays and such like that, they do discounts, like 50% off, might be worth checking it out. If you do already use it, there's a Facebook group. Let us know if you want to see even more in-depth tutorials on it, because that's going to take a whole different set of series of videos, because it's enormous. One of the most enormous synths I ever used. This is VPS Avenger, or Vengeance. Avenger, it's not even a synth, it's a production suite. That's how crazy it is. So if you're looking for a synth that can kind of do everything, it's probably this one. If you know of a synth that is crazier than this, I would love to hear it. Would love to check it out, because it's insane. Anyway, I love it. I bought it. I'm going to use it. Can't recommend it enough. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment sections. And this synth is definitely worth exploring. And that's it. We'll catch you next time.